Hello, and welcome to a Pokemon XD Gale Darkness video, where today we'll be completing the game with Sableye. Now, Sableye is a Pokemon I've always enjoyed the look of, and I believe it was Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. It actually got a Mega Evolution, which is pretty cool, but I never played those games, so I'm not actually sure how good it is. And then, the other thing to note is this is a dual typing of Dark and Ghost, which perfectly cover each other's weaknesses in this generation, so that it has no weaknesses. But they did balance it by giving Sableye some mediocre stats. It has 50 HP, 75 attack, 75 defense, 65 special attack, 65 special defense, and 50 speed, and gets access to a lot of normal Ghost and Dark type moves, as well as a couple of Psychic, Fighting, Water, Electric, Rock, and even Flying type moves. So that could be very useful for some type coverage. And how long has Sableye been turned around? Hey, we're trying to look professional here. That's better. Anyway, as I was saying about the mediocre stats, as you can see, they're not that great, and the main thing balancing them is the typing not having any weaknesses. But in this game, because Shadow Pokemon always do super effective damage, I could see that being a huge issue, especially against the final boss. But that's a worry for later. For now, let's look at our Sableye, which has a naive nature, raising its speed but lowering its special defense, which should be fine because it is quite slow as is, so this will definitely help me catch up with some faster Pokemon later in the game. It also has the Keen Eye ability, which prevents me from losing accuracy for moves like Sand Attack, which is pretty nice. And according to Bulbapedia, it gets Scratch, Lair, Foresight, and Nightshade by level 10. So with that, let's go ahead and get right into it. At level 13, I get my first attacking move that has Stab, Astonish, which will definitely come in handy. And we jump straight into the battle against the old man, because being part Ghost type trivializes a lot of the early game, because normal type moves can't hit me. So we get to this point pretty easily, but as you can see, the flaws of Astonish are showing up very quickly. It's a fairly weak move on a 75 base attack stat, so it's not doing a ton of damage, but it's certainly serviceable for this point in the game, and I'm going to switch to Nightshade to take down the Shroomish because I don't want to get hit by Effect Spore, which could paralyze, poison, or put me to sleep. So it only takes a few Nightshades for me to beat the old man and move on to the Power Rangers, which I decided to go with Brown because he has a Baltoid that's half Psychic type, and even though Astonish didn't do that much damage, it certainly will take it down in a few hits. Anyway, time to commence just a little bit of rambling. If you are enjoying this video so far, consider liking, and if you have any Pokemon suggestions, please put them down below. At level 17, I get access to the move Fury Swipes. However, I decide not to learn it because I just find that being that inaccurate is more of a liability than anything. Anyway, the other thing to say is I'm trying to get this channel back on track for 2 videos a week on Tuesdays and Fridays like it had been before. I know I already missed the Tuesday that this was supposed to go up on, but I've been doing work in the background trying to build up a backlog of suggestions and Pokemon videos, because I want to be able to upload them whenever I can't actually find time, and I'm going to be losing time again pretty soon. So anyway, we beat the Power Ranger, and I decided to do a little bit of training at Mount Battle, and at the same time go ahead and pick up the move Water Pulse that I teach over Leer. And soon after, I run into Loverina, the first boss of the game, who leads with a Love Disc and a Beautifly. And I go for Astonish, which only does half of Beautifly's health, so it will be a 2-shot. Unfortunately, it gets a crit, taking me down pretty low. I level up to level 29 and get the move Feint Attack, which I'm going to teach over Scratch, just because I get Stab on it, so it is pretty decently strong. Hit with Water Pulse, that doesn't really do too much. Go for Feint Attack into Roselia, but it looks to be a 2-shot. Get hit with Leech Seeds, so now I'm losing a lot of health every turn, and it's healing. Go for another Feint Attack to finish it off. And then out comes her final Pokemon, which is a Shadow Delcatty, which will certainly finish the job and take me down. But one last Feint Attack just to see how much it does, and that was a decent first try. So why did it take 5 attempts? Well, I just needed to level up some, and I was being a little too impatient, and that's because the move Astonish has a chance to flinch. I don't know exactly what it is, it's probably 30, but I was really hoping for a flinch on Roselia, but I just never got it in the 5 attempts, so it's able to set up Leech Seed every time. But I have enough health this time to survive Delcatty's Shadow Rush and take it down with a Feint Attack, and then all that's left is the Love Disc, who will definitely take me down if I don't get a crit or a flinch. I get the flinch and finish it off. So 5 attempts. Not great, but we did it. Anyway, you can't have a Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness video without the obligatory Mirror B. Hello Mirror B, how are you doing this fine day? Okay, well anyway, at the Real Gam Tower I pick up my 2 favorite TMs, Hidden Power and Protect, and I'm going to teach Hidden Power right away, which happens to be Hidden Power Electric, which is pretty useful throughout the game. However, I could also have just done Area 3 of Mount Battle and gotten Shockwave, but this does save a bit of time. Anyway, at level 41, I get the move Shadow Ball, which I'm going to teach over Astonish, and we go into the battle against Snaddle. He leads with a Lantern and a Quagsire. I go for Shadow Ball into the Quagsire to see how much it'll do, but it's not quite a one-shot. And Quagsire hits me with a Rock Tomb, lowering my speed. Then out comes his Shadow Lunatone, which will always set up Shadow Sky on the first turn, so I'm really hoping I'm able to take it down in a single Shadow Ball. But unfortunately I'm slower and it takes me down. So after saying that I couldn't take down the Quagsire in a single hit, I decided to go to Mount Battle to do just a little bit of training in order to get my level up high enough to where I can survive a few more attacks and also take down the Quagsire. So I return at level 47, I use Shadow Ball, which does one-shot the Quagsire now, then out comes Lunatone, which I'm going to use to my advantage because as it turns out, this is now attempt number 5. And so I have found out that a few Pokemon just need a little bit of chip damage in order to actually be taken down in a single hit. So once Lunatone sets up Shadow Sky, I can take it down. Castform uses Icy Wind because my speed hasn't been dropped any, which is nice because I'd rather that than Water Pulse. I use Shadow Ball to take down Matang, which wouldn't have done that had it not gotten a crit. And then all that's left is the Castform, which I'm going to use Feint Attack to finish off. And that's Snaddle on the 5th attempt. Okay, well before the next fight against Gonzap, I teach Psychic over Feint Attack, and we go in, and because I'm a Ghost type, I don't have to worry about being hit by Fake Out, so I go straight for the Electrode to finish it off. Then out comes Vileplume, and Nuzleaf is just going to be using Feint Attack. I go for Psychic to take down the Vileplume in a single hit, and then out comes Whiscash. Now Whiscash is fairly tanky, so I'm hoping a Shadow Ball will do the job, but it doesn't. I get crit by Feint Attack and finished off by Water Pulse. Well, back into it again, this time at full health, use Shadow Ball just as before to take down the Electrode. Out comes Vileplume once again, Feint Attack still not doing too much damage to me, Psychic takes down the Vileplume in a single hit, and then out comes Whiscash. I'm really hoping that it was just a range that I missed, so I go for another Shadow Ball, which it seems that it was on the high end of the range before. So I get hit by a Rock Tomb, lowering my speed, which really doesn't matter in this fight, because all of his Pokemon are fairly slow. Out comes Skarmory, which because I have Hidden Power Electric, I can actually hit super effectively and take it down in a single hit. And then all that's left is the Nuzleaf, which I can't really hit with any of my moves for effective damage, but it's not really a threat because of how weak it is, so only after a couple Shadow Balls it goes down, and we beat Gonzap. Moving right along to Gorgon, he leads with a Lairon and a Celio. Because the Lairon always goes for Protect on the first turn, I go for Shadow Ball into the Celio, which takes it down in a single hit, and he sends out his Slowking, which also goes down to a Shadow Ball. And then out comes Ursaring, which is very frail on the special side, so I decide to go for Psychic into it, but it uses Protect. That's a bit unfortunate. Well, I'll just go for it again, and it goes for Protect again. Okay, that's kind of weird. So I decided to just go ahead and take down the Lairon. Maybe the Ursaring can't hit me with anything? No, that doesn't make sense because it has Earthquake. Well, in any case, I take down the Primeape, and maybe it'll use it to hurt Hypno pretty good. Well, it does quite a bit to me, and not too much for Hypno. And I decide to go for Psychic, which doesn't take down the Ursaring in a single hit, so I get hit by a Shadow Storm and another Earthquake to finish me off and lose. Okay, well, back into the battle again. I decide to do the exact same thing as I did before. Take down the Celio, take down the Slowking, and then once again out comes the Ursaring, but this time I know it's just going to be spamming Protect for some reason. So I take out the Lairon before I can start dealing damage with Earthquake, and now that I know that the Ursaring isn't going to be using Protect anymore, I go for Psychic into it, which isn't quite a one-shot just as before, but it does get it down pretty low. And because Primeape's down to half health, it's not going to go for another one, so I'm able to freely take down the Primeape, and then out comes Hypno once again. And at this point, it doesn't really matter who I take down. In this case, I decide to take down the Hypno, because as long as I don't get crit, I should be fine. And another Psychic takes down the Ursaring. And we move on to the last area of the game. And while Sableye is doing fairly well at the moment, the last area of the game is way harder than basically everything before it. So let's see how well it does with it seeing its first other Sableye. Hello, other Sableye. Goodbye, other Sableye. And we move on to the fight against Lavrina. Once again, she leads with a Gorbis and a Gardevoir. I go for Shadow Ball to take down the Gorbis right off the bat because I don't want to be hit by Attract. Unfortunately, because of this, I am risking being frozen every turn, but I need to take down the Roselia so it doesn't set up Leech Seed. And then out comes Farfetch'd, who likes to use Shadow Panic. So I want to take it down also as fast as I can. And now I can finally get the Gardevoir taken down, which luckily it didn't freeze me, so one Shadow Ball does the job. Altaria hits me with a pretty strong Shadow Rave. Another Shadow Ball nearly takes it down. And with that, one last Shadow Ball finishes the battle. And you might be kind of surprised to see me at the tutor lady teaching Body Slam, but that's because of this trainer in particular. See, the nice thing about being a Ghost type is that a lot of Pokemon are not going to be using a lot of their attacks on you. The problem with this fight in particular is that the Exploud has Screech and Supersonic, and the Stantler only uses Hypnosis. And at this point in the game, I didn't really have anything to do a ton of damage to Chansey, which is the reason I taught Body Slam in the first place, because even if I got past the gauntlet of all the other Pokemon, Chansey was just too strong. Anyway, at the top of the tower, we run into Snaddle once again, who leads with a Quagsire and a Matang this time. Unfortunately, I'm not able to take down the Quagsire in a single hit, but it does miss a Mud Shot, not lowering my speed, so I finish off on the following turn, and then out comes Scizor. And I decide to take down the Matang now because I'm able to take it down in what I thought was going to be a single hit, but unfortunately it survives on a Sliver, and so I had to use the second attack to take it down as well. And then out comes Solrock, his first Shadow Pokemon, which always sets up Shadow Sky on the first turn. So I go for Shadow Ball to take it down, and then out comes Castform. And these Steel Wings are starting to add up. Go for Body Slam, which isn't quite a one-shot on Castform either, and Steel Wing finishes me off. Okay, well, after a little bit of training, I come back to this battle where Quagsire is now one-shot. Out comes Scizor once again. Ice Punch doesn't freeze. I go for a Shadow Ball to take down the Matang in a single hit, and then out comes Solrock once again, who we already know is a one-shot with Shadow Ball, so it's not really a threat, so down it goes. Out comes Castform once again, and now Body Slam should be a one-shot, which it is, and then all that's left is the Shadow Starmie. Now, there is potential that this outspeeds me and does quite a bit of damage, but luckily Shadow Ball should finish it off in a single hit. But a crit does guarantee it's a one-shot, so all that's left is the Scizor, and because it has a defense raise, I'm going to use Psychic, but it definitely should have been Hidden Power, as I learned on the second turn. So it's able to survive on just a Sliver and get finished off. Okay, well, Snaddle wasn't too bad. Moving on to Ardos, he leads with a Shadow Swallow and an Alakazam. But the Alakazam is definitely very scary here, so I decide to take it down on the first turn. Out comes Kingdra. Fruity Pebbles are raining down because of Shadow Sky. And the Swallow was actually going for Shadow Half, which is quite lucky. However, I had not planned for it, so I did get hit by it, taking me down to half health. And the Fruity Pebbles don't allow me to heal. So I decided to just go ahead and take down the Swallow now because it's too much of a danger to be left alive. Heracross hits me with a Rock Tomb, which might actually make me slower than the Electabuzz. Fruity Pebbles, and as I feared I am, and it takes me down in a single hit. Okay, well, I go ahead and teach the move Protect over Hidden Power and go back into the battle once again. And same strategy as before, Shadow Ball to take down the Alakazam right away, but this time I'm going to use Protect on the second turn because I'm expecting a Shadow Half, and it goes for Shadow Break. Okay, well that's a little bit unfortunate, but this is actually the fourth attempt, and that's because the Swallow just stopped doing the Shadow Half strategy that it was doing before, so I had to deal with it just using Shadow Break and hoping that it might go back to Shadow Half at some point, but it never does. So out comes the Heracross, which I can take down with a single Psychic, and then out comes the Shadow Electabuzz once again, Now, because the shadowy aura fades away this turn, I know that the Swallow is going to use Shadow Sky, so I'm able to freely take down the Electabuzz. And this brings out his final Pokemon, Shadow Snorlax, which is always a bit of a pain to deal with because it has a 60% accurate Shadow End that does a ton of damage. And because the Swallow's here using Shadow Mist, it's never going to miss. Which is why it's very lucky that I got a Paralysis here, and I'm able to take it down with 2 Body Slams. And then all that's left is the Swallow that I know I can take down with a single Body Slam. And Swallow goes for one last Shadow Break, which isn't enough to finish me off. And Body Slam doesn't quite do the job. Okay, well, panicking now, I go for Protect. It goes for Shadow Half, which guarantees my victory. Okay, well that was fairly close, but we beat Ardos on the 4th attempt. Moving right along to Gorgon, who leads with a Slowking and an Ursaring. I go for Shadow Ball to take down the Slowking in a single hit, and then out comes Aggron. And I wish I still had Water Pulse at this point, but I had to get rid of it for the Chansey. So I get hit by an Earthquake, which doesn't really do too much damage, even on a crit. Go for Protect, and it seems that the Ursaring's doing the same behavior it had before, where it just spams Protect. So it's actually not a threat here. Out comes Walrein, and I spam the button too fast and hit Psychic, but luckily it's going to be a 2-shot anyway, so it ends up being fine. Ursaring uses Earthquake, nearly taking down Walrein, so now I know it won't do it again. I go for Protect here, though I don't want to get hit by another Earthquake. And finally finish off the Walrein with a Shadow Ball, bringing out Poliwrath, his first Shadow Pokemon, who always uses Shadow Sky on the first turn. But say it with me, Poliwrath is a fighting type, so I'm able to take it down with a Psychic. And then out comes Mr. Mime, Earthquake from Ursaring, takes Mr. Mime very low, go for Shadow Ball to finish off the Mr. Mime now, and then all that's left is the Ursaring, which one Psychic should do the job, and Gorgon goes down. Before the battle against Eldis, I'm going to go ahead and teach Hidden Power back over Body Slam. And we go into the battle. He leads with a Shadow Manectric and a Ninjask, and the Ninjask seems to be going for Silverwind, which isn't great because I'm going to be taking more damage from it than I normally would, but I can just protect every other turn, so it has less chance of getting Omni boosts off of it, and less uses overall. Shadow Ball takes Salamence down to half, Shadow Rush does quite a bit of damage to me, go for another Protect just to heal up some, and to waste another PP of Silverwind. I go for Shadow Ball, which should finish off the Salamence, but it doesn't, it actually survives on a Sliver. Okay, well, one last Shadow Ball does the trick. And then out comes Flygon. I go for Protect, that way I'm not going to get hit by Aerial Ace. And go for Shadow Ball into the Flygon, which does quite a bit of damage to it. But it goes for Flamethrower, doing about 20 damage to me. Go for another Protect. And finish off the Flygon with one last Shadow Ball. And then out comes his third Shadow Pokemon, who is a Shadow Marowak. Now this thing has the potential to take me down from basically any health, so I go for Psychic to do as much as I can to it. It's not a one-shot, but it misses. I go for Protect, and one more Psychic takes it down, and all that's left is the Shadow Lapras. Now, I don't really think this thing's all that threatening because I do have Hidden Power Electric, so it should do quite a bit of damage to it, and it's looking to be a 3-shot. Okay, well it sets up Shadow Sky, as it always does. I go for Shadow Ball this time to see how much it'll do, and it's not enough to take it down either. And, whoa, that Shadow Storm did way more damage than I thought it would, and I go down because of it. Now on attempt number 4 here, and I really just needed a lot of luck in order to get to this point with this much HP. As you can see, the Hidden Powers still aren't doing half damage to it, so I am going to take quite a bit of damage from Shadow Storm. And I do think had I lost this one, just one more level would have been enough to take down the Lapras in 2 hits. But before I do that, just to play it safe, I decide to go for Protect here to wait out the Shadow Storms, and to make sure I have enough HP to take down the Ninjask. I go for that final Hidden Power to take down the Lapras, and then Fruity Pebbles Rain, and that should be the last turn of Fruity Pebbles. Ninjask goes for Protect once more, but after that, one last Hidden Power should take it down. And that's the battle against Eldis. Okay, well, moving on to the Big Box Legendary, Shadowlugia, who should go down in just a couple Shadow Balls. and it hits me with a pretty decent Shadow Storm. Go for Protect here just to heal up what I can before the final fight, and finish it off with a crit. Okay, well, we move on to the battle against Greevil. Leads with a Rhydon and a Moltres. I get a lucky crit to take down the Moltres in a single hit with Shadow Ball, and then out comes Executor. I go for Protect to heal up some, and I'm debating on whether or not I should take down the Executor or Rhydon. Eventually I decide to try to take down Rhydon, who actually survives the Psychic, but misses his Shadow End. I go for Protect again to heal up nearly to full health, and go for Shadow Ball to take down the Executor in a single hit. Out comes Tauros, and not one to be made a fool of. Rhydon hits a Shadow End, gets a crit, nearly takes me down in a single hit, and I decide to take it down with Shadow Ball. And then out comes Articuno, but at this point I'm way too weak, and Tauros finishes me off. So I decide to do a bit of training over at Mount Battle, and the plan is to get to level 84, and then use my 6 rare candies to get up to level 90. That way I think I have a decent chance of actually being able to take down everything in a single hit. But before I get to that point, I actually run into another Sableye. Goodbye, other Sableye. Now at level 91, and on the final battle, I still don't one-shot the Moltres with a single Shadow Ball. So I do take a hit, but I can heal up a decent portion of it. I go for another Shadow Ball to finish it off, and then out comes Executor. The Rhydon hits a Shadow End, taking me down to about half health. Go for another Protect to heal up some. And the Executor is just going for Shadow Hold. I go for a Psychic to take down the Rhydon. And then out comes Tauros. And luckily Executor actually misses the Shadow End it was going to use. I go for Shadow Ball to take it down. And then out comes Articuno, who at this level still isn't a one-shot with Hidden Power Electric. And Tauros goes for Shadow Sky, so I can't heal anymore. I go for Protect just to stall it out some to make it so eventually it won't be able to attack me. And I get a lucky crit on the Articuno, taking it down in a single hit. That's just the luck I needed to get past this battle. I go for another Protect. And now I just have to take 2 attacks from both of these Pokemon, and I should be fine. I decide to go for Psychic into Zapdos, which takes it down to half. And Zapdos hits me with a very strong Shadow Bolt, and Tauros nearly takes me down with a Shadow Rush. I go for Psychic to finish off the Zapdos, and Tauros goes for Shadow Sky. So now all I have to do is take it down with a single Psychic, and beat Greevil. Okay, well, with that, how well did Sableye do? Well, it beat the game at a time of 13 hours and 44 seconds at level 91, and had 34 feints throughout the game. And honestly, that's kind of better than I expected, because looking at its stats, none of them are particularly great, and like I said at the beginning of the video, it's all to balance around the fact that Ghost and Dark is just a perfect type with no weaknesses. However, in this game, there are a lot of flaws to the type, specifically because Shadow Pokemon are so prevalent. In this game, you find them all over the place, so you are taking a lot of super effective hits for a Pokemon that really isn't supposed to be taking them at all. And in fact, the typing itself, while being really good at making everything more or less neutral, it does have an issue of not really giving you any defensive advantages. It gives you immunity to Fighting, Normal, and Psychic, which is really nice having 3 immunities. However, it is neutral to every single type in the game, except for Poison, which Poison isn't even all that strong of a type to begin with in this game. So, unfortunately, it finds itself down in the C tier, even though it came into the last day of the game at a time of about 7 hours. It was actually really fast. It could have even been in the A tier, but unfortunately it just struggled against most of the end game, and especially Greevil at the end there, where I had to do a lot of training at Mount Battle. But with that, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, consider liking and subscribing. If you have any Pokemon suggestions, please put them down below. And thank you so much for watching. Bye!